Welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important news from the sports card hobby. We'll have some debates, opinions, new release schedules, and info. Plus, we'll also discuss the sports that so directly affect the hobby we all love. We'll mix in an occasional gambling tip or two, throw in some life stuff, and bring you great guest interviews from the hobby and sports dignitaries. And if you're good listeners, we may even give away a few things now and then. Now, here's the guy who wanted the cards and not the gum, John Newman.
Sports Card Nation. Sports Card Nation. Sports Card Nation.
All right, that was my best Brian Johnson. Not very good. That's why Brian Johnson's Brian Johnson. We're back from Chicago, Sports Card Nation podcast, episode 37. And I'll warn you, it's a good thing. This whole show is going to be about the 40th annual National that just took place in Chicago. I came in there at Thursday night, so I was at the show Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And this show, like I said, is really going to touch on, we're really going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to talk about observations, things I did, things I seen, stuff I liked, maybe stuff I didn't like. If you went, some of these may resonate with you. Some you may agree with, maybe you don't. Either way, we love feedback here, so let us know what you think. We have two great interviews on the show today. These were in-person, live recorded interviews at the National in Chicago. First time we've done that. The audio was recorded via DVR, digital voice recorder. So there's some background noise. You're going to hear people talking and buzzers and beeps, but you'll be able to hear the questions and the answers for sure. My interview guests are Peter Steinberg, Director of Operations of SGC Grading. He's going to talk about his company, SGC, widely viewed as the number 3 grading company, but why they really are the best in their opinion, especially with current goings on. So he's going to talk about some new things they've incorporated in the last couple years and why they're, in his words, the most trusted grading company out there. Nice interview with Peter. He was gracious enough to step away from his booth, and they had a very large booth, and you're going to hear him say it himself, but they had their best showing at the National ever, and I'm sure some of that relates to current ongoings and the like. Our second interview is going to be with Mark Humphries, General Manager of ThePit, which is a sports stock exchange pertaining to cards. They've been around a while now. They're not new. They've had some change of ownership. They were once owned by Topps. He's going to talk about kind of the journey from being a user of the company to now basically owning the company and some of the changes he's made, where he sees this genre going, and his opinions on the hot button topics in the industry. So I want to thank both of those gentlemen for giving us some time right at the National. You know, a lot of things going on, for them to kind of step away from what they're doing and giving the show some time. We appreciate that. I want to say thank you to them. So 2 interviews on the program. Heavy National show. We're going to talk about a ton of stuff. And I hope this is really a yearly show we do after the National, where we just kind of review our experiences from it. Here in the intro, I want to thank a few people for making some things possible to make it such a great weekend. I want to start off with my friend Marlon Carlson, also known as SpartyHawkCache. He was my roomie for the weekend. He had an extra bed in his hotel room, and he said, hey, if you can get here, let's go. It was kind of a last week thing, and it worked out. And so without his generosity, we wouldn't even be talking about this national experience. So I want to say thank you to Marlon. He deemed me the Cougar. There's a story behind that. And I'll play you a soundbite where that nickname comes from at the end of the show. So a little tease there. Hang in there to the end of the show, and you'll hear why we've been deemed Sparty and the Cougar. That was what he called us as the duo, Sparty and the Cougar. And like I said, hang to the end. You'll see why. I don't know if it's good for me, but you might enjoy it. I want to thank Drew Herndon, who had me come up on stage with Mojo Breaks and himself, and to watch some Topps Chrome being open and give it away to some lucky people in the audience. So that was a very nice thing. I want to thank Drew for that. And, I want to thank Jeff Hoffer and Eric Norton from Pack Geek and the Fat Packs podcast, having me on. We did a dual show where we opened some vintage wax, ate some 1984 Topps gum. Yep, ate it because it pretty much disintegrated. So I don't know if it's out by the time this is out, but if not, look for those broadcasts soon. Had a lot of fun. As most people who've heard me or seen me post know that, Eric is his inspiration for what I do here with this show. And so being on that set and that program means a lot more than he may realize. So it was a big thrill for me. Great weekend. So I want to thank those two guys as well for their time and have me on. And just everybody, I met quite a few people in person for the first time. And, you hear everyone say that really the show is sometimes more than the cards. It's meeting people, in online form only. And now you put a real face and handshake to the person, if you will. And again, the mantra of the show, the tagline of the show is, the hobby is the people. And I think the National really epitomizes that, is that, we all as a whole make up the hobby. And so getting to meet the people was really, I was excited to do it. I look forward to it. And it lived up to everything I anticipated and even more so. And we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the cards, the personalities, bad things, good things, Gary V, you name it. If it happened, I've got a list of show notes here, a whole page long. So we're going to cover a lot of things with the National Weekend. We got those 2 interviews that we're going to air on this program as well with SGC and ThePit.com. So jam-packed show. If there ever was such a thing, this show is going to be jam-packed. So again, thanks for being with us. Thanks for taking the ride with us. And without further ado,
Here we go.
So for the hobby segment, I'm going to spend this segment kind of going over the observations I made attending my first ever national. Kind of sounds funny saying that. 30 years in the hobby, never got to one before until now. And like I said, I almost didn't get to this one. But I did. So I want to kind of just go over my experiences. If you went to, we can compare notes and see if you agree with the majority of what I say. If you don't, or if you do, we love feedback on the show. Reach out, let me know what you agree with, disagree with, private message me, public message me, either or. So First National, got my media credential, got in early, so I was kind of in there early before the general public were kind of let in. Obviously, a lot of the dealers were there, and other people too, but not very crowded at that point. And what hit me right off the bat was how vast, how large this facility was, all the tables, and even just walking around before the general public was let in. I can tell you I got lost numerous times and lost my bearings. So it's easy to kind of get discombobulated and remember where stuff is. When I heard other people talk about stuff like that, I'm like, how do you kind of get lost in a kind of a square, but it's not exactly square, number one, and with that amount of square footage, you can get lost rather easy, and I did that numerous times. So, like they say, you need more than a day for sure to really, if you want to look at everything and cover everything, you're looking at least a few days. And I was there 3 days. I think I covered most of the ground, but I'm not sure I covered all of the ground. So you need time to attend a show of this magnitude. I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby for a reason. I think it lives up to the title. I will say most people were pretty friendly, which was nice. As far as once the general public, once the doors were open and walking around and watching sales being made at tables, the one thing that stuck out to me, it was like every sale that I was watching kind of be completed, other than like a wax purchase or packs purchase. If they were single card sales or lots and stuff, either one or both parties had their phones out and looking stuff up. So either the buyer or the dealer on the other side of the table were constantly had their phones, probably checking comps and again, being in the industry 30 plus years and starting doing shows at 15 years old in 1987, obviously before the cell phone technology we have and the apps and eBay, the price guide days, if you will. It was just, and I don't want to say it's unexpected. I do shows locally as well, but to just see phones constantly out when transactions were being made like that, and to the magnitude, almost every non-wax or pack sale, if it was a single card, people just checking, am I getting a good deal? Is there a better deal? Dealers checking, am I right at the comps or where am I? And, it was kind of odd, as great as modern technology is, it was, I don't know, it just was weird seeing transactions being conducted like 70-80% with phones constantly out to complete them. But that's the nature of the beast. That's where we are in 2019. That's not going away. And, it is what it is, as they say. The amount of stuff inside this building is amazing. Eric Norton asked me on Fat Packs, what I thought or what was the most to take away, and I'll say it here on this show. There's the saying when it comes to the National that if it's not here, then it doesn't exist. And I tell you, that statement isn't really that far off, because the amount of vintage and modern at that show, and game used equipment even, and bats and gloves and signed baseballs and just everything under the sun pertaining to the industry, the hobby, it's all under one roof. I can tell you a couple showcases that really stood out to me. One dealer had two nice size showcases, and both of them were just filled with Jordan autographs. Every single card was a Jordan, either a Jordan auto or a Jordan patch auto. Just insane. Like, how does that even happen? I mean, it was to me head scratching, super impressive. Another dealer had, again, 2 cases, and it was all Trout stuff. Rookies, patch autos, 2 full cases where every card fit that bill of being either a Trout rookie or a ton of patch autos or autos, and just jaw-dropping stuff. And I like I said, I've seen a lot of stuff in my day and in history, but even to me, that was like just super impressive, that those kind of showcases that had that stuff. Same thing with vintage. There was, vintage where certain dealers just had almost every key significant vintage card, post-war, if you will, that you can imagine, from Mantles to Robinson to Williams, and just an amazing display and variety of stuff. Another showcase a gentleman had was just like all bat barrel cards and just like killer patch cards and just crazy high-end expensive, again, jaw-dropping stuff. And in a way, it's sort of like the Cooperstown of cards. Every card almost is represented under the roof of the National, and that's just worth the price of admission there. Getting a media pass where there is no price of admission always is nice too, but even to those paying to get in, well worth it just to see these displays and selection of cards. Gary V, getting in early as I did, leading up, obviously I knew he was there. I'm a fan of his. I may not agree with everything he says across the board, but I definitely wanted to get to meet him, shake his hand, get a few autos possibly, but I really didn't know what to expect in terms of that. I didn't know, I figured his table would just be mobbed, 2 rows deep, and he'd be hard to interact with, and with the media credential, you get in earlier, like I said, than the general public. So I was in there, and I was, I didn't pester him. That's not my style. But I went up a few times during a couple days, pre general public doors opening, and chit-chatted with him. And I was just shocked at really how down to earth he was, and talkative, and I did buy some stuff from him, but even before even making a purchase from him, how just receptive and friendly and talkative he was. And he signed some of his 360 sets, and he signed the baseball for me, which is something I wanted to add to my case that I have of autograph balls. And I even talked to him at different other times during the show when the general public was there, and he was always readily accessible, didn't blow anyone off, and just was really friendly. He must have took 1 million pictures. I know I posted on Twitter that if he had $1 for every selfie he took with people, myself included, he'd be a millionaire. Obviously, he already is a millionaire. It's a play on words, but people were just left and right asking to take photos with him. Like I said, I fall into that category too. And he was very accommodating. He never seemed put off by it. Almost seemed to welcome it. He'd walk around the show as well. And when I knew he was going to be there, I wasn't sure if was he going to be there like one day and then skirt out a couple days and leave his crew to kind of handle things and then make a cameo on another day. He, for the most part, from what I could gather, he was there the whole time. And that's impressive when you got someone of that stature who, let's be real, he doesn't need to sit behind 2-3 tables and make whatever he pulls in at a week show like the National. And obviously what he makes is his business, but I mean, we all can agree what he pulled in for selling cards at this show dwarfs in comparison to his net worth. He didn't need to do this to pay bills or to make ends meet or the like. I mean, I think even if you're not a Gary V fan, the fact that he stayed there the whole week, was accommodating, talking to people, taking pictures with them, signing left and right, never refused anything I asked to get signed, and that was quite a bit. I had some friends back here in New York text me and ask me to buy some of the 360 sets, and if he would sign them and bring them back with me, which I did. That's what friends do. But anything I asked Gary to sign and whatnot, no hesitation. We joked a little bit. I'm from New York City as well, and I mentioned how I'm a huge Steeler fan, and he asked me how does that happen, being from New York, and I explained to him Mean Joe Green and the Coke commercial. And the steel curtain defense, and that I was in, and he joked that they got Le'Veon Bell, and he said, "I'll give you a pass. I understand how you during that time period you kind of latched onto the Steelers." So we had some good banter, and just really impressed at how accommodating he was. So where I was going with this point was, he didn't have to be there the whole week. He was. So whether you agree with everything he says, even if you don't like him, you can't argue the point that he doesn't have a passion for this hobby. He said so himself. He loves it. And I think his actions backed those feelings up. So it's not just lip service. He was there, like I said, all week, and very accommodating to fans. And people came up to ask for autographs and pictures and all that. And, hats off to him. I think while I don't agree about the sneakerhead portion of what he said, I think he has brought some new blood into the hobby, and that's just a good thing. You can't really argue otherwise, legitimately. Anyway. The other thing I loved about the show on a personal note was getting to meet a lot of people in person that I've gotten to know online. I can't name everyone. I'm not even going to name people. You know who you are. I posted pictures and the like. And there was a few people, unfortunately, I didn't get to link up with. So hopefully we get to do that somewhere soon or at Atlantic City next year. But just that, meeting people, and it's funny, you meet people for the first time, it's usually just sort of kind of an awkwardness, and I at least on my end, I didn't feel that. I felt sort of a camaraderie with people, and I think other people did in return. So the other interesting thing about the show, it's a thing as a dealer myself. When I set up at shows, I'm a dealer who prices his stuff. I mean, 95% of all my cards in the showcases have a price tag on them. It's a kind of pet peeve of mine. Believe it or not, I don't want to say I'm shy. It's hard to do a podcast and be shy, but I'm sort of show shy. If I'm attending a show and the cards in the showcases are not priced, I tend not to ask the dealer how much is that or what can you do on that. I just kind of keep going unless it's a card I really, really, really want and it's not readily available across the board. So I always curious to see the percentages of dealers who price their cards to those who don't. And I was definitely curious to see how that fit into the National. And just from the walk around over the 3 days and hitting, I would say, the majority of the tables, if not all of them, I think it's a 30-70 split. 30% pricing their cards and 70% not pricing. And I have a train of thought there. I think dealers who don't price their cards, it's usually one of two things. It may be that they tend to trend on the high asking price side, and they rather not give people sticker shock. But I don't want to paint everyone with the broad brush. I think some other people don't price their stuff because they just have so much stuff, and they're just constantly refreshing their inventory and moving in stuff in and out. It just saves them time, just not to price stuff and that sort of thing. So I can understand that. Obviously, I can understand either. It's their stuff. They don't have to price it. There's no rule. I'm just, as a dealer myself, I'm a person that usually I have a price gun. I get a price on pretty much everything, unless I by accident actually miss something. The show, exceeded expectations that I had. Never being, you have a vision in your mind of what you think this is going to be like and look like and feel like. And I got to be 100% honest that it really exceeded expectations in all those categories I just mentioned. I was really curious to see how many younger kids were in attendance. If you listen to the show or follow me on social media, the kids in the hobby are very important to me. It's very important to me that young kids stay in the hobby and carry that torch forward. And I will say I was pleasantly surprised about the amount of kids that fit that description that were at the show. It probably could have been more, but it was more than I was actually expecting. I'll say that. So I was a little bit pleasantly surprised in that category. I think we as a hobby and the card companies themselves have more we can do to get even more of an influx of young kids into the hobby. But it was definitely nice to see some of that activity there. I got to give a shout out to Ivan Lovegren and Rob Bertrand, emceeing the show from the main stage, and they did a great job, and they put in a lot of manpowers doing that. I can tell you, as a former Pop Warner football president, where I was in charge of an end of the year 3-hour banquet festivities, that's hard to do just for 3 hours. And to do what these two gentlemen did over the course of 5 days, and kind of being the voice of the show, if you will, is very impressive. And then I found out later on that Rob wasn't feeling good. So to do that on top of all of that is, hats off to them, kudos to them. Like I said, it's hard enough doing a 3-hour football banquet, and these guys got that job done for 5 days. So I'd be remiss not to give them sort of credit. All the other show hosts, Eric Norton, to produce content over the course of that 5 days, and have the wherewithal and the focus to do that and deal with people as they walk by. It's not as easy as they probably make it look. So again, kudos to them as well. And it's really a great event. It's something being the first one, I'm going to remember it. No matter how many times in the future I might go to another one, the first one's going to mean something to me. Let's talk about some negative stuff. Well, one more positive thing, and we're going to have him on, but I noticed a lot of people with these backpacks with a card case on it, and it turns out it's a product called the Firebox, which holds raw and graded cards in it with kind of like a backpack straps. and I was seeing him left and right. So he did very well. I went up to his booth and talked to him, and he's going to be on the show and talk about the products that they offer. And obviously they're very popular. If you're just walking around the show, that's easy to determine. So we'll have them on to talk about Firebox, and they do some other products as well. It's not just the cases, the carrying cases or the boxes itself. They do some other stuff, and we'll have them on to talk about their company. Some of the negative things, I really didn't think PWCC would honestly show up. They were there, and I don't know how it was in past years with their booth, but anytime I was near their setup, it was very, very quiet. And frankly, there was more PWCC employees than people in their area. And they can refute that all they want. It is what I saw. It is what a lot of people saw and reported. And, they're definitely feeling the brunt of some of their allegations, and seeing that, I don't know how they survive the current ongoings, and there's reports that they're cooperating. Brent Hudgens is cooperating with the federal agents and whatnot, maybe to save his own skin, if you will. I saw him a couple times, and a lot of times I noticed he wasn't in their booth. So, definitely they're feeling the wrath or repercussions of some of their alleged allegations. How this company survives going forward is yet to be seen. I'm not sure. If you're asking me, I'm not sure how they can. Almost, it's going to be very difficult to get public trust back once you lose it. But that's the task they're faced with. It's going to be daunting for them, But we'll see. Maybe I was telling someone else asked me on the show floor when we were talking about it. They asked me, how do I see them surviving? I think, Brent almost has to really sell the company to not a family member or someone on the inside, someone completely on the outside. That person has to kind of come in, kind of apologize for prior transgressions, say that they didn't happen under his or her watch, and rebuild the company. Maybe even rebrand it. Maybe change the name. I hate to say it, but it might be the only recourse. So we'll see where they go from there. But based on what I saw in Chicago, they really are behind the eight ball and up against it. So, going to be a daunting task, no doubt, for them. So one negative thing I've seen in numerous forms and fashion there that I want to talk about is it seemed like every garbage can you look in it, and there's just cards, base cards, if you will, just thrown away, and tables where people were opening packs. They just left the cards they didn't want sitting on the table. Some were thrown in the garbage, and when you got numerous organizations, including Cougar cards, that redistribute these to younger children to pique their interest and get them involved in the hobby, to see just cards strewn about, thrown away, it was a little disheartening, and not happy to see that. I know I saw a couple social media posts where it bothered other people too. One individual even took pictures and wrote, he thought it was terrible that that people were just throwing cards away, and I felt the same way. I understand you're looking for certain things, but if you don't want those cards, there's many avenues you can do to redistribute those Cougar cards. There's a few other organizations of similar ilk. You could walk around the show and give them to some kids. I know we did some packs, breaks on fat packs with Jeff and Eric, and 84 and 86 stuff, and those were going to be given to somebody. So rather than just thrown in a garbage to not be enjoyed by anyone else, and so seeing cards on top of garbages and that sort of thing is probably one of the bigger negatives I took away, and really not a lot. So overall, it was a great experience. One of the most impressive things, obviously other than those Jordan Trout and that bat barrel case and all those, and vintage, huge vintage, big cards were one of everything almost. The other impressive thing, and I'm sure a lot of people saw, the 8 packs of 1952 Topps baseball at the Baseball Card Exchange. Only $575,000. I was a little short. I kind of took out my wallet and seen what I had. I came up short. I asked Jeff Hoffer if he split it with me. He was a little short. But, I mean, just crazy to see that there like that live. And just, you look at that stack of 8 cards and you just wonder, if you were able to open those, what you hit, and even not besides what you hit, what kind of shape are those cards in 67 years later? And the potential, you pull a mantle that will grade crazy high, would actually make that investment of over $500,000 actually worth it. But you don't know. That's the risk you take. Can you imagine buying those 8 packs for $575,000 and not getting the mantle? I think the price kind of is built in that you almost should get a mantle, but there's no guarantee. So, but boy, wouldn't that be fun? That'd be fun just to watch someone else open it. I heard someone joked with Gary V that he should go over, buy them, and then do a whole show or whatnot, opening them up. So, and whatnot. Heck, I'd even probably pay $10 like pay-per-view, just to watch that. And so, that was, incredible. And it's like I told my son, who didn't get to go, that next year I'd really like him to go. He would have had a blast, and whatever he thinks it is, it's tenfold of what you imagine, and I really believe that. So I had a great time, met great people for the first time, and got to do some events, be on a couple shows, and network out for future interview guests, and so very good. It's something I plan on doing every year in some form or fashion, depending on where it is. If it's closer to here where I am in the New York area, I maybe make a 5-day whole trip out of it. If it's somewhere maybe a little further, the Chicago's, the Cleveland's, or if it gets further west, like I think I should. And that's another thing. I think that the National should hit more cities on a rotation. I like to see it even come onto the East Coast more. I know Atlantic City is East Coast, but maybe somewhere south again. Atlanta, Florida, maybe Texas. You got Dallas as the hotbed with all the companies, and Beckett. Let's be honest. It probably should be there again. I know it's been there before. California, West Coast. I'm sure they'd love to have the show in their backyard. That's a trip, almost no matter where the show is. If you're a California native, it's going to be a trip to go anywhere east. And I know people did make it from there, but that's a task, and not a cheap one at that as well. So I like to see the show circuit pertaining to the national kind of cover all the regions in fairness to the collectors in all those regions. I know there's logistics and there's hotel certain requirements that need to be met. I understand that, but there's got to be some cities other than Chicago, Cleveland, and Atlantic City that can check those boxes off. So I'd like to see, some new cities again get this show back in their town. Even if it means a little more travel for me, then so be it. I just think that's really the only fair way to do it. Now, whether they do, I don't know. I know it's Atlantic City in 2020, and then it's Cleveland and Chicago, or it might have that reversed, but it's right now they're in a Cleveland, Chicago, Atlantic City type of rotation. But I'd like to see some other cities maybe get the show in their locale, and I think that would be a good thing. Sports cards are worldwide. Obviously, they're stateside. They're countrywide, and I like to see everyone maybe get this kind of show, maybe not in their backyard, but in their neighborhood, and so they can attend. I'm sure there's a lot of people on the West Coast that couldn't get to Chicago. I'm sure next year there'll be a lot of people on the West Coast that won't get to Atlantic City, and I'd like to see those people get that opportunity. For someone who just attended their first one after this amount of time in the hobby, and I think it's something that everyone that's serious about the hobby, that loves the hobby, should get to experience. So the more places this show can set up shop in, pun intended, the better off the hobby will be, the better off the collectors and dealers will be, and it's just a domino effect. I want to take this opportunity to welcome a new sponsor to the show, Firebox Card Cases. If you were at the National, you probably saw a lot of people with a card case backpack that had like a flame on it. That is their company, Firebox Card Cases. They're going to be sponsoring the show. We're going to have them on to talk about their products, how you can order them, and what they're all about, and what those cases actually do. And they're really great cases. I got to see them up close and personal. I'll probably be ordering one myself here shortly as well to replace what I use now. So Firebox Card Cases, welcome to the Sports Card Nation podcast family.
Alright, we're here at the 40th National here in Chicago. Joining us now is Peter Steinberg, your CEO? Director of Operations of SGC Grading. And I'm thankful for your time. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Have you tell us a little bit about the history of SGC and things you're doing now, and we'll go from there.
Totally. So SGC was a company founded in 1998. And since then, we've basically just kind of had our head down, trying to make a name for ourselves in this industry. And I think from our inception all the way up until the 2019 National, the main priority is customer service, getting cards in, cards out, and of course the grading itself. I can tell you on all three of those fronts, we are extremely happy with where we're at right now. And I think we've had a little help, obviously, with the competition. But this has been an absolutely killer national for us, and I think that we're going to go back to the office completely motivated and driven to just kind of kick butt this upcoming year. And I think you all could expect some really accurate, consistent grading, along with some quicker turnaround times than you're used to.
Yep. And so you got some momentum going here. You said this has been your best showing to date. I'd be remiss, Peter, to not ask you, with the current controversy in the grading industry, your take on that, and in relation, SGC's approach to those negative aspects.
Right, I figured that question was on its way at some point. I'm more than happy to answer that. I mean, I think as far as all these controversies go, it's a little like, when you're watching ESPN and these guys are doing their post-game interviews, we're just keeping our head down. We're keeping our head down, we're focused on what we do. All that noise, don't get me wrong, it's on our radar. There's a lot of stuff we have to be in tune with and look out for. We're constantly making improvements. We're a much smaller company than some of our larger competitors, so we have the ability to adapt to what's going on much easier than they do. So I can tell you, maybe a little later in the podcast, I can go into some of the, I don't even think changes, more just improvements that we've set in to kind of counteract all those.
I was going to ask you, in light of recent events, have you done anything differently internally yourself?
Right, so we've actually incorporated some new technology that oftentimes is actually used in the autograph authentication world. And what we found is obviously today what's so prevalent in this hobby is color being added to some of these vintage cards, which just makes them really artificially pop, Yeah. And what we've done is we have some machinery in our grading room where any card that's even, you have an inkling of any color being added to that card, we throw it in this machine. It breaks the card down into, way over my head, a trillion pixels, whatever it is. And it's just interesting because although we have the most qualified experts in the world, I really think that, to not incorporate this stuff is just silly. I mean, we want to get it right every time. And if we could use that technology to do so, we're definitely going to.
And people in the industry with those blackboard cards, those are the more famous cards that get that kind of, like someone else famous said, restoration. I don't personally agree with it. I agree with your take where it's altering the card. Others will say it's done in the art world, but I don't think you can compare those two worlds in this case. So the fact that you now have a fail-safe in place to catch those things and not get through yet, I think it's good to hear, and it's refreshing, especially with what's going on
certainly
currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at a very interesting time in the hobby where things are coming to light and kind of everyone has their opinions on it. As a grading company, I think it's actually our job rather to try to convince everyone that our opinion is the right one, or even really go public with our opinion. We're just kind of the referees of this industry. We make very clear that if there's color added on a card, or our experts deem a card to show any evidence of trimming, that card is going to be rejected or authenticated, obviously. Where that stands with the overall hobby, I've been asked on some podcasts before. I think that's going to play out. I think it's kind of to be determined. The public perception on that, how it'll affect card prices, it's really to be seen. But I think as far as we're concerned, like I said, we're just keeping our head down and we're on high alert, obviously, as everyone else is. And we're very proud of the work that we do, and our standards certainly haven't changed on those.
Okay. I'll ask another kind of obvious question. If someone asks you why you over the competition, I know you touched on some stuff already, but how would you answer that
to be honest, I think the better question is why not us over the competition. When you call SGC's customer service line, you not only get a very highly trained customer service representative, but you get a real member of our team. I mean, these people, for the most part, are touching the cards themselves throughout the day. These guys totally understand the tremendous impact that these expert opinions have on the value of these cards, have on the perception of what actually is encased in our holder. So when you go and you want to know why your 56 mantle may have come back with evidence of trimming, I can't promise you that the people answering the phone can point out exactly what edges trimmed, but what I can promise you is that they'll give you the time of day. They understand that this means a lot, both from a monetary standpoint and a lot of times from just someone loves their cards. Everyone loves their cards. And I think that's kind of what sets us apart from a customer service standpoint. As far as grading, like I said, I think I'm super confident in saying that we have some of the most qualified experts in the industry. These guys have been grading for many, many years and kind of grew up in this hobby. They've devoted their lives to what they do. And more than anything, we take tremendous pride in getting that opinion correct as close to 100% of the time as possible. What also sets us apart is we don't pretend to be anything we're not. We want our collectors to know exactly what they're getting going in. Transparency is huge for us, that comfortability factor. Again, my name's Peter Steinberg. If you'd like to speak with me, give us a call and ask for me. I'll jump on the phone anytime.
Cut out the middleman.
There you go.
And customers, and I'm sure you already know this, I'm preaching to the choir here. Customer service is very important in any kind of industry or business, and the fact that you've made yourself readily available and the company as a whole, where a customer can speak to someone and get answers and get a response. I think that's going to be huge. I'm sure it already is, but it may be what could set you apart, going forward.
Right.
Now, I myself have been involved in the hobby for 30 years plus. I'm old, so I know of SGC. It's always, and I'll let you respond to this. It's always kind of had, where I've heard a lot of the feedback's been, well, it's only a vintage car grading company.
Right.
Modern should go somewhere else, let's say. Your response to that perception?
Absolutely. So I'm sure everyone is well aware that at the 2018 National, we debuted our new black labels, moving away from the green and moving away from the 1 to 100 scale. And to be honest with you, the grading has not changed one iota since then. What has changed is the visual look of the card in our holder. We wanted to not only apply to some of our T206, collectors and cards like that, but at the same time, we want you to get your, 2019 Topps Chrome, Juan Soto autograph card in our holder. The grading is pretty much identical when looking at a modern card to a vintage card. Obviously, modern being that they're pulled from the pack, a week before grading, tend to be in the, 8.5 to 10 range. But as far as that goes, one thing I can promise you is that SGC, we're not in the business of controlling supply, anything like that. I think that sets us apart, to be honest with you. If your card is a 9.5, I can promise you you'll receive a 9.5 on that card. If it's a gold 10, just a perfect score, you're going to get it. We don't hold back grades. We don't look at pricing, anything like that. What you see is what you get on the card. If I went into our grading room and I tried convincing one of these guys that, maybe we should bump this, maybe we should keep this, they would literally kick my butt out of the grading room because they've just been doing this too long and they care too much about the customers that have put their faith in them. So from a modern standpoint, I think the 1 to 10 scale is great. The black label is great. And if you're really interested in actually knowing what the card should be graded, I would give it to the SGC experts because these guys have the knowledge base from the 1860s all the way up to 2019.
Yeah. So you've described some of the new things you've done, even as recent as 2018, and even more recent with the machine that can detect artificial pixelation, if you want to call that. I know you said your take is the kind of nose to the grindstone. We're going to do what we're going to do. We can't really worry about what the competition so much do. We're just going to be the best we can be, in a sense.
Right.
I have to ask you, with recent transgressions in the industry, where do you see others maybe making changes, maybe even stealing, maybe trying to take a little bit from you and incorporate it into what they're doing?
That's hard to say. I mean, we're very open about what goes on in our grading room, and not that we're trying to we certainly don't want to keep any industry secrets, because as far as we're concerned, we want to grow along with our competition. We're not trying to kill anyone out of this industry by any means. I think it's healthy for the industry that you have that choice. When you don't have that choice, that's when you kind of have a monopoly situation where they're in charge, they set the rules, and you're the little guy who really has no say. So I think as far as them changing, it's hard to say. I mean, I guess to be honest with you, I hope they do. because I can promise that they have a line right now at the National, just like we do, to submit, and that's not going to change. Hopefully what does change is some of the quality, to be honest with you. At SGC, another thing that sets us apart is we have a very tight grading room. You don't have a team 20 strong of individuals that have been deemed experts to give these very influential opinions on these cards. When you submit to SGC, you're basically getting the same set of eyes on those cards every time. What does that lead to? Extremely consistent results. That is something that they will never be able to do. And that's something that as we do scale and as we do grow, and we've kind of seen this explosion of business at the 2019 National, anyone who is even thinking of stepping foot in our grading room, it's not a training, this is an apprenticeship. This is, let me take you under my arm for a year and show you what we're looking for, how we do things, and kind of the overall SGC way.
Yeah, that way the standard remains the standard.
Exactly.
I personally like that, and that way they're just not kind of thrown in the fire where a lot of negative things could potentially occur.
Right.
Well, I appreciate your time. I know, like you said, you're very busy giving the show some time. I definitely, what I do with every guest is I let them kind of have the final say, plug the website, social media, where people can find SGC and how to submit cards and the like.
Awesome. So again, guys, I hope that everyone goes to GoSGC.com, kind of reads up a bit about us. Give us a call at 1-800-742-9212. We'd love to answer any and all questions you have about SGC grading. If you've never tried SGC before, I definitely would encourage you to do so. And again, I'm a hobbyist like all of you are. I think at SGC, we are you. We want to serve you because we know what it's like to be in your shoes. So again, hope we see some new faces at next year's National, and it's been an awesome one so far. Thank you very much, John.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for your time again.
Thank you.
Sports Card Nation Podcast is your weekly hobby and sports podcast, now on 10 platforms: iTunes, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Radio Public, Anchor, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Castbox, and Overcast. Listen to in over 26 countries globally, Sports Card Nation Podcast is one of the most interactive podcasts around, providing great content, giveaways, and some of the hobby's best interview guests without time constraints. Thousands can't be wrong. We want to thank all the wonderful listeners around the world, all our great guests, and our tremendous sponsors for making us what we are today. As always, without you, there is no us.
We're here at the 40th National Convention here, Sports Collectors Convention. I'm joined now by Mark Humphries from ThePit. I'm going to introduce him. Thank you for taking some time out today, Mark. Tell us a little bit about ThePit, how it got started, what's transpired from that point to now, and what your company does.
Thank you, John. ThePit.com is the only trading exchange for sports cards where 8,000 items are traded on a buy and sell basis. So every website has a buy now button, but very few have a sell now button. And only ours has a sell now button for, as I indicated before, 8,000 different items. We focus on cards of active players in the three major sports, baseball, basketball, and football, with a focus on rookie cards and especially the most popular brands, Bowman Chrome in baseball, Panini Prism in basketball, and Panini Contenders in football, along with Topps Chrome for some of the older quarterbacks that were around when that brand was preeminent in football. And the site also has another unique aspect in that you can buy and sell cards without necessarily taking delivery or possession of them. In other words, you can buy a Ronald Acuna card in April, leave it with us, and hopefully sell it for a higher price in July or in September. because we offer free warehousing for all of our cards, we've never charged a dime for storage in the 19 years of our operation. And the cards are viewable by you in your account just as you would see on a stock brokerage account or a mutual fund. You see that you own 3 Ronald Acuna Bowman Chrome rookie cards. You see that you own 1 Tom Brady Bowman Chrome PSA 10 card, for example. And you can, from the same page, post your sell prices, and if you'd like to buy more, you can post your buy prices. So it's really the most comprehensive trading platform ever developed for trading cards or for just about any other item outside of stocks, for any physical item.
And you said you're going on 19 years? Or?
ThePit.com has been operational for 19 years. I have owned and managed it for the last 8 years. I'm the 4th owner. The first owner, and I go through this because the history is kind of interesting. The first owner the founder of the company was a guy named Mark Humphries, who developed the concept in 1999. Like myself, he was a guy coming from Wall Street, but he saw the confluence of the great growth in eBay with the development of the graded card concept and the rookie card craze all at the same time. If you flash back to 1999, you remember who was making big news. Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds. It was a boom time for cards, and it was before the luster was lost when it turned out these guys were all juicing. So at the time there was an explosion of interest. The online trading of cards was growing rapidly with eBay, and PSA had really hit its stride. I remember talking with Joe Orlando and him telling me that I believe PSA started grading cards in 1991, and there was a pivotal year, which may have been 1998. If it wasn't, it was 99, where in that single year, they graded more cards at PSA than they had in the previous 6 or 7 years combined. So they hit a tipping point. At any rate, back to the history of the Pit, Mark Humphries recognized this, and he managed to adapt a Wall Street trading platform, a sophisticated software, to the buying and selling of baseball, football, and basketball cards. And this was back in 1999 with the dot-com boom. Every brick-and-mortar company, every company that wasn't online wanted to get online, including Topps Chewing Gum. And they paid Mr. Lorry $6 million for ThePit.com and incorporated it into their business. As an aside, Mr. Lorry went on, after that first business success, to start a company called Diapers.com, which he sold to Amazon for $500 million. A few years later, he was at Amazon, and he decided he still wasn't satisfied. He decided to start a company called Jet.com to compete directly with Amazon. And when I learned about the company and the fact that it wouldn't break even until it did $20 billion in revenue, I said, well, that'll never work. He sold the company to Walmart for $3 billion, and he currently runs Walmart e-commerce. So I always think that's an interesting aside. The guy who founded the Pit is today arguably the number 2 person in U.S. e-commerce behind only Jeff Bezos of Amazon. At any rate, Topps Chewing Gum owned the Pit from 2000 to 2005, and they launched the Bowman Uncirculated program through the Pit. Many people became familiar with the Pit through that program, where they would get a redemption card, and when they redeemed it, they would get a card on the Pit. But Topps didn't find the Pit to be central to their operations. They learned that the internet was not, in fact, going to kill baseball cards. Baseball cards were still going to exist in physical form. And they decided to divest of the business and sold it to a company called Naxcom, which was a Southern California company associated with the old Hollywood Park show. And that show is gone, and I believe Hollywood Park is gone as well. It was a horse racing site when it wasn't hosting conferences. I was avid customer of the Pit almost from the start. And I was a big rookie card speculator back in the day. When I was at college at Stanford in my freshman year, I bought 3,000 Roger Clemens rookie cards. 3,000 Roger Clemens Topps rookie cards, paid 20 cents each for them. And one night I was listening to the radio, listening to the Oakland A's game, actually, and doing my homework. And there was an announcement that Roger Clemens had struck out 20 Seattle Mariners without walking any. This was 1986, I think. And, of course, immediately the card doubled or tripled. I ended up selling those 20-cent cards for an average of $4 each within 12 months. So that had me hooked on rookie card speculation. And I took the $12,000 I'd made off of Clemens and parlayed it into some other intriguing prospects. A few of them didn't fully pan out. I remember Sid Fernandez was an investment. But one of them was a skinny outfielder on the Pittsburgh Pirates named Barry Bonds. About 6,000 of his rookie cards. 4,000 of the Topps traded. Maybe 1,400 of the Fleer update. Roughly 600 of the Donruss rookies. I'm laying this all out for you because I eventually sold a lot of these cards on the Pit. So that was 1987. Flash forward 14 years, 2001. I got laid off from my investment banking job, but I was in San Francisco, and it turned out that Barry Bonds was having a pretty good year. And he hit 73 home runs that year. And I said, wow, these cards are really worth a lot, and there's this new concept, new to me, of PSA grade. I said, I got to get some of these cards graded at PSA and Beckett. I sent equal amounts, I think, to those two companies. I had 6,000 of these Barry Bonds rookie cards. I probably had 3,000 of them graded. I remember the Fleer Update PSA 10. I think I sold it for $1,400. It was one of the first ones. Today that card is worth about $130.
You did all right.
Big differences, yeah. The run-of-the-mill PSA 9 Topps traded was maybe a $30 or $40 card. Today it's about a $12 card. We all know about the issues that Bonds and the other sluggers of that era had with performance-enhancing drugs. But at the time, I needed to move some of these cards. I wasn't working. Grading and selling cards had become essentially my job at that point. And I was selling a lot of them on eBay, but I preferred the Pit because I could send them all to one place and list them for whatever prices I wanted, and then I'd simply be alerted when they were sold. So I developed a real affinity for the Pit as a platform. I preferred it to eBay for these commodity-type cards that had large populations. And I must have sold 800 at least, Barry Bonds graded rookie cards on the Pit, and many other cards as well. So I developed an interest in the Pit. I did 4,000 trades in total on the Pit between 2001 and the time that I acquired the company, when Naxcom came looking for a buyer, and I said, wow, I was born to do this. Combine my Wall Street experience with markets, with my passion for speculating and prospecting rookie cards.
And from a different aspect, Mark, here you are a customer, a consumer of the product, and then going from that phase to being in control and owning the company, which a lot of times not always is the case. And that kind of gives you, I'll let you answer this, but I think it kind of gives you sort of a built-in advantage because the familiarity of the process. And probably even when you were just a customer, things you said, man, I would, if I owned a company or if I was in control, I'd maybe do that a little bit differently, or I don't like that, I would like it better this way. And now you had, that opportunity. How did you know they were selling? Like, how did you know that opportunity was there?
I had stayed close to them, giving them advice as I could, and hoping that the exchange would thrive. And they knew that I had a banking and experience in mergers and acquisitions, and so they thought I was a natural person to come to help them consider a sale. But once they approached me, I kind of figured I was going to buy it myself. And I did so, completing a purchase in the middle of 2011. And was really excited about running this platform that I had enjoyed for so long. John, as you said, I had my own ideas because I had been a customer. And so one of the things I did within a few years was add more vintage cards, including what I consider the big five: Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Koufax, Clemente, and Aaron, in their regular Topps cards, graded PSA 6, 7, and 8. And so that added an element of vintage card investment options on the pit. But the bread and butter remained rookie cards, and we've always had strong interest in ungraded, say, Bowman Chrome baseball cards, as well as PSA graded Hall of Famers from the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Now, with the vintage, you still do. People can submit their vintage cards.
They can send us their graded vintage star cards. We don't trade commons.
Yep.
But like I said, the big five, and then we also have another tier of 13 called second tier stars from the golden era. Guys like Harmon Killebrew, Al Kaline, Brooks and Frank Robinson, Don Drysdale, Warren Spahn, etc. We trade those cards in PSA 7 and 8 for the entirety of their career. We don't always have the rookie cards in stock, but we often have multiple copies of the others.
Yeah, and anything transacted on the pit, you have the cards in the possession. It's not a case where someone isn't going to send their end of a transaction. You have the cards. So if someone wanted, like you said, people have a choice. They can keep the cards, you'll store it without charging them. But if someone did want the card in their hand, it comes from you to them.
That's right. So we have this warehouse in Southern California. To give you an idea of it, it's not a big warehouse, of course. It's only about 1,000 square feet. You don't need a lot of space for single cards. We've got 37 filing cabinets, the original filing cabinets that came to us from Topps via Naxcom, the companies that had it previously, and each card, each stock-keeping unit, if you will, is coded to a specific filing cabinet and a specific drawer in that filing cabinet. And so when we're picking cards to send out on an order, my operations manager will look at our spreadsheet showing where those items are located. And then we've got separate boxes for ungraded cards. It's graded cards in the filing cabinet.
Yeah. What determines market price? You know what I mean? How do you determine, let's say, a Mike Trout?
The short answer to that is eBay.
Yeah.
Since eBay is the 800-pound gorilla in the space and has a near monopoly in the resale of items, eBay, we watch eBay prices very carefully. Our customers sometimes watch eBay prices even more carefully than we do, and that allows them to achieve arbitrage profits, to buy something on eBay for cheap and sell it to us for more, or to see something that's spiking on eBay and buy it on our site for cheaper. So those opportunities are available. Had a customer earlier this year who bought a Mike Trout Sterling Refractor PSA 10 on the pit for under $4,000 and was able to flip it for $7,000 within a period of a few months.
Yeah.
So there's an example.
What percentage, I don't know if you can answer this, but I'll ask a question anyway. What percentage of the transactions would you say the person takes possession of the cards in relation to, I'm purchasing the card, but hold on to it because I think it's going to obviously increase its value, and then in turn I'll just sell it and have you complete that transaction with the new buyer. What's the percentage to transactions that have to be shipped to the ones that just stay in your possession?
Great question, and I would estimate that the number of transactions that are shipped is maybe 15%, 15%. because our most active customers are the ones who have realized the benefits of leaving their cards with us. Here are all the benefits. You don't have to place the shipping order. You don't have to receive the cards and have to inspect them all and see if any have scratches or anything. We've already taken care of that. When you buy a lot of 10 Chrome cards on eBay, for example, you better look closely at all of them because maybe a few of them are scratched. We've already inspected all of them and verified that ungraded cards, for example, are in near mint to mint condition or better, and that any graded cards have cases that are not meaningfully scratched or chipped. So a lot of our customers understand the benefits of leaving them with us. Free storage, free insurance, no angry wife or girlfriend can throw them away. They're in our possession. And they can list them again, and when they list them, they don't have to take pictures of them. We deal with the items as fungible. By that I mean that one Chipper Jones 1991 Bowman PSA 10 is the same as the other. So if you're the kind of collector that has to inspect every card, we're actually not the site for you. We're devoted to speculators who will say, look, PSA is good enough at grading PSA 10. They're not perfect, but they're good enough that if I get a stack of 10 Chipper Jones 1991 Bowman PSA 10, I don't need to go through them and decide that some are not as good as others. I like to say that in this country, amazingly, baseball cards are graded more accurately than corporate bonds. If you've ever seen the Michael Lewis movie from the Michael Lewis book, The Big Short, we learned 10 years ago that the structure of grading financial assets in this country was rigged. And there was essentially bribes and kickbacks paid, and there was a lot of really poor debt instruments that got sold all over the world for more than they were worth. Now, the baseball card grading industry isn't perfect, but it's actually better than the grading of corporate bonds in this country.
That was going to be my next question, Mark, is I'm sure you know kind of what the current events are going on with the grading and some of the controversy, if you will, with trimming and you know, some backdoor dealing, if you will. Number one, has that affected the pit in any sort of way, and what's your personal take on what's going on in the industry, in the hobby?
Great question, John. So we haven't seen any decrease in prices, and I think that's pretty much what the hobby at large has seen. Now, I want to see what happens after the National, because I've seen in past years where often the National tends to be the peak of the year's prices, and then some of those prices decline after the National. We've seen strength in both the vintage and modern markets. There's a lot of very exciting young players right now. Fernando Tatis and Ronald Acuna and Juan Soto. A lot of terrific players. Wander Franco in the minors, and that's keeping interest strong. Of course, in basketball, we haven't seen the Zion Williamson cards yet, but we will, and that's going to be. And then in vintage cards, we continue to see record or near record prices. So the areas of the hobby that will be hit hard, and probably have been hit hard already, are obviously the ones that are the specific targets of inquiry. So I've never been interested in black label BGS 10s. I've always thought, geez, it's really at the whim of the grader, and can you really distinguish a black label from a regular 10? So we've never traded those on the pit, and as it turns out, that has been one of the biggest pieces of the scandal, as I understand it. So that we're not going to get hurt there. We love to trade. We're not interested in one of ones, one of fives, one of tens, or even one of 25s. Generally, we have traded a few orange refractors that's numbered to 25, but generally our interest stops at number to 50. We want deep populations. We want large populations because those are the only cards that we can trade effectively on the pit. And I just want to reiterate that we don't trade every card on the pit. If you want every card, there's great places for that. eBay, and also check out my cards. COMC is great for that. They do a tremendous job of identifying and imaging every card that exists. We don't do that. We focus on the cards that trade most frequently. And that means that we're focused, for example, in baseball, on the higher end, Bowman Chrome autographed cards that are graded Gem Mint 9.5 by Beckett. And again, since we treat all cards identically, if you're the person that has to have all 9.5 subgrades, we're not the best place for you. Because typically, that card demands a premium, so sell it on eBay. Yeah. We trade the majority of the cards that, has a 9 for one of the subgrades. It may have a 10 for one of the other subgrades, but it's not a quad. It's not what some people call a true gem. That's fine with us. We want to trade the majority of the cards and provide the most efficient way of trading it. And back to the point of the scandal, see, when I look at a Ronald Acuna BGS 9.5 Bowman Chrome autograph, I'm not really concerned that card's been trimmed. I mean, most of them come out of the pack, mint or gem mint. It's not unreasonable to think that the card was gem mint when it came out. It's unlikely that card was doctored. Now, on the vintage side, as I understand it, it's some of the older sets that have been the most hard hit. Leaf product from the 1948. I think there was a football set that had heavy trimming. Yeah. And we don't deal in those sets. And I feel sorry for the people that have been cheated, but we've stayed away from that because we are looking for cards with deep populations. And as I mentioned earlier, on vintage side, that means Willie Mays cards from the 1960s that are graded 7 or 8. There's 400 or 500 of those typically in each of those grades.
Yeah. You mentioned COMC and eBay. Do you view them as competition? Do you view them as good for what the pit does? How do you? I know you mentioned them, but how do you view them in the marketplace in relation to the pit?
Well, eBay is certainly the biggest competitor for anyone that's trying to sell cards independently, and we sell cards on eBay too. You have to sell cards on eBay, essentially, I think, if you're in the hobby, and we get good pricing information for that, and we do a really good job of managing our inventory, make sure we don't double sell items. Sometimes you have to act quickly to do that, but eBay is absolutely a competitor. COMC is less of a competitor because they have a tremendous niche of accepting any card, and my understanding, primarily ungraded cards. You can send them a box of 500 cards; they'll identify them all. They do charge more for check-in and storage, but it's a very useful service. But I don't view COMC as a competitor, really. I do admire their management and their business model.
So, with that being said, recently Gary V's always been a collector, an investor in the cards, but recently he's gotten a little more active. He's actually here attending the show here at the National, and Topps has put him on his own insert set, and now he's got his own little complete set, I think, 30 cards. And he's been some people like the fact that he's a spokesman for sports cards now. Some kind of take it the opposite. It's sort of negative. As someone involved in the industry, and from the investment side yourself, you probably share that sort of connection with what he does. How do you see his influence to the hobby? Good or bad, or a little of both?
I think it's good. Anytime a guy with 2 million Twitter followers and I don't know how many million Instagram followers, it's a lot, shows his passion for our hobby and his interest in specific cards, I think it's good. It draws new people into the hobby. He has a broad following, probably the vast majority of whom are not card collectors, but some who might try it. I actually met Gary Vee on Wednesday when I came to the show, and as I expected, he has a way of personally connecting with each person, making you feel special. He has a real gift for that. So I think he is a terrific spokesman for the hobby. I guess the only negative is that if he hadn't come in, I'd probably still have some Giannis Antetokounmpo rookie cards, but I think he's got most of them.
I don't know if you saw a showcase. It's a showcase.
Some of them were probably mine that he bought either on eBay or had someone buy for him on the pit. But that card was $150 in PSA 10 at the start of the year, I think, and peaked at maybe $600. Maybe it's at $450 now or so. He's been very instrumental in driving that card up. But Giannis is also a fascinating, unique player who is a sight to behold.
Yeah, and full disclosure, and I've said this on Sports Card Nation podcast, I'm a Gary Vee guy. I love his stuff, his book. I don't agree with everything he says across the board, and I think a lot of people probably could say the same thing, but I tend to agree with what you said, Mark. I think he's bringing positive attention to the hobby, and when that happens, I mean, I don't know, you can't be that critical, of it. I think he's like you said, bringing new people, new blood to the hobby, and that's always a positive. Speaking for myself too, I'm not getting any younger, so we need that next group to kind of come in, grab the torch and run with it themselves, and subsequent groups even after that. And I think Gary Vee has that sort of pull and influence, and if it's positive, like you said, and I believe, I think it's going to be good for the hobby, and maybe even obviously for the pit as well. In closing, what's the future of the pit? Anything new? Have you what's coming down the line?
Great question. That's why I'm here this week to build partnerships. One of the big announcements this week was related to Gary Vee, because he spoke with StockX founder Josh Luber on Wednesday. I wasn't there for the talk, but StockX has been an extremely successful company in buying and selling sneakers, Air Jordans and Yeezys and stuff of that type, and they've grown from zero to $1 billion in revenues in something like 5 or 6 years. It's a tremendous success story. Their business model is very similar to the Pit's. They have a sell now button. If you own a particular type of brand new Air Jordan sneakers, you can sell it through their website at StockX. And now, not surprisingly, they're coming after the trading card market. And they're in some sort of formal or informal partnership with Gary Vee, because he was speaking on their behalf. And so we're now seeing a competitor to the Pit with a almost identical business model. Now, StockX have launched only 4 cards. We have 8,000, and it's going to take them some time to build it out. But we recognize that a company that large has a tremendous advantage over us in terms of growing for the future. So that's why I'm here to build partnerships with other big players in the hobby, whether it be the manufacturers or the major auction houses, or potentially the unopened materials resellers, because I think it would be good for the hobby and it would be good for the Pit to bring on new users. And there's going to be a great opportunity for that now, because StockX is going to be popularizing this bid-ask model. They call themselves the stock market of things. Our slogan at the Pit is trade sports stars like stocks. And as they educate people on the benefits of a bid-ask model with delivery optional, I think that'll enlarge the market, and I know that it's increased the interest of potential partners in talking with me this week. I've had a lot of good conversations, which hopefully will lead to a partnership soon.
I hope so too. That sounds great. In closing, again, if you want to give out any of your website information, any social media handles, that way people can find out more about the pit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on Twitter at ThePit Cards. We're on Facebook, the Pit Sports Stock Exchange. We also have a Facebook forum, which is search for ThePit.com forum, and you'll find that on Facebook. It's specifically devoted to collecting and investing. It has an investing in sports cards bent, and so it's very different from the other many Facebook groups, many of which are devoted to people posting a picture of something and saying, give me bids on this. We're focused on getting investment perspectives from people, and I think it can be very useful for that because that's what we're focused on. So we're on Instagram as well. I have a social media guy who is very active there. He's posting on Instagram and Facebook all the time, so search us out there. And what I'd like to do as an exclusive for John's podcast listeners is that if you come on the Pit and make any $50 purchase, I'll add $15 in additional Pit bucks to your account so that you can buy some more or get shipping on what you've already purchased, and just send an email to customer.service@thepit.com or contact us on any social media, and we'll get the additional $15 deposited to your account following your $50 purchase of anything on the Pit. And go to the Pit, you'll see terrific prices. We try to beat eBay. eBay's best buy now on just about anything that we have meaningful quantity of.
Well, number one, thank you for your time, Mark. Thank you for throwing that bonus in for anyone listening that wants to take you up on that, and hopefully some do. And if there is a big announcement coming somewhere down the line, you're more than welcome. The door's open to come back and do that on the show itself as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, John, for the opportunity to discuss this with your listeners.
All right, thanks.
We love our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We care about your opinions and feedback and invite you to reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, Twitter at SportsCardNati1, or email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We don't ask for much, but if you really like the show, give us a shout out. Tell your friends or give us a follow on our social medias. If you enjoy the show, please give us a positive review on iTunes or any of the platforms you are listening on. Thank you.
For over 25 years, Newman Sports Cars has set the standard in customer service in the hobby, including same-day shipping. They've added trading card supplies and wax products to their already impressive arsenal of rookie cards, game-used cards, autographed and graded cards. Check their fully searchable website out by Googling Newman Sports Cards or go to bit.ly/Newman Sports Cards. Give them a follow on their social medias on Instagram, Newman_sportscards, and on Twitter @NewMSportsCards, or give them a call or text at 315-491-0239. Newman Sports Cards, for all your hobby needs.
So let's put some finishing touches on episode 37. Just want to say with the show, I reached out to a few people there, introduced myself, did some networking. We've got some interviews coming down the line here in the future, talking to some people that I knew in an online form, reached out to them, like I said, and they've agreed to come on the show. So look for their appearances in the next few weeks, let's say, or even coming months. We're really extending our list of potential guests, and that's a good thing. One of the first things I did when getting home, or actually did it on Tuesday, is took off July 29th to August 2nd, 2020. In case you haven't figured that out, that is the date of the National Sports Collector Convention 41 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Figured if I put in for the time off a year ahead, should be no problem, and I won't have to worry about scrambling, hopefully, like I kind of did this year. And again, I'd like to thank Marlon Carlson, also known as SpartyHawkCache, who, like I said numerous times, without his generosity, this whole trip wouldn't have occurred. I wouldn't have talked about the things I talked about, and had a blast. And so he kind of coined us Sparty and the Cougar, and I told you in the open, I teased you in the open that at the end of the show I tell you where the Cougar part of coining me came from. And so obviously I shared a room with Marlon, separate beds obviously, but at one point on the first night, I guess he woke up while I was still sleeping, and I do snore a little bit. I have a deviated septum. He said my snoring sounded, he thought there was a cougar in the hotel room with him. So on another night, when he woke up and I was still sleeping, he recorded that cougar type snore, or so he says, and then he sent it to me on the last day. And I'm not vain, and I'm humble enough and depreciating enough to play that recording here. So for all those interested, and maybe from the tease in the open waited for this, here is how I got coined the Cougar. Cougar, that's a cougar. So from the Cougar, thanks for listening. We'll see you next Friday for episode 38 of the Sports Card Nation podcast. See you later.
You've been listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. Join host John Newman next week as he gives you another jam-packed episode of all things related to the sports card hobby. And a little extra fun, too. Don't forget to check out the show on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast.